Reviews are typically about one Joe or Josette's experience. How someone determines a product to be good or not is solely based on how they think and how they feel. But what if I was able to provide a review that not only incorporated my thoughts on a product, but incorporated the brain juice of a bunch of other nerds as well, and ultimately provide the definitive review? Well, we'll just have to see how it turns out. But I think with some pretty shots here, some 8K resolution there, you might be able to make it work. The design is one of the most fascinating elements of the iPhone 12 Pro because it's essentially Apple admitting that they were wrong. If you remember the iPhone 5 and 5S, those devices had a flat edge design, so the 12 Pro is clearly taking inspiration from those devices. But why? If you remember the iPhone 6 that was introduced back in 2014, that device introduced a more rounded edge feel in the hand that we've maintained for pretty much the past 6 years now. So why the backtrack? What made Apple reconsider?
This device, from the very first day that I started using it, has made me think different about the iPhone. Not like, how does it work or what does it do, or like, think about an iPhone as a different product. It makes me excited to use my phone again. And I don't think that was necessarily dying with the iPhone 11 series, but I do know that we were looking at that rounded edge design since the iPhone 6. And the second that I touched one of these with my hand, I was just like, wow, I look at the back of my phone randomly again, which is kind of like a feature in and of itself. But really, it's just like holding it in your hand, it feels so new that even doing something like going on Twitter or using Instagram feels better. It really enhances every single part of the experience because the boxy design is necessary. It's nostalgic, and I'm just so excited. I'm so excited that we have it this year.
It still has a notch though, which can seem pretty lame compared to other flagships in 2020 or even 2019.
To one end, I do think when you have a new design like this, it's a major part of the new phone experience. Like 75% of what feels like it's new in a phone, even if it's the exact same thing, is it just feels and looks new, and this phone looks and feels new. It's got the new sides, so it feels like a new phone. But when you say truly new,
but when putting things into perspective, when taking a look at the notch here, you firstly got one half of an A1 sound experience through the earpiece speaker here on the 12 Pro. Then you got a host of sensors, which are used for what's generally speaking, very reliable Face ID, at least if you don't have a mask on. And then there's the front-facing camera. So at least the notch has a functional purpose, right? But I'll be happy when it's gone.
On top of even just looking at that, man, the notched design, still using Face ID and not having any Touch ID biometric authentication like you get with the new iPad Air and other smartphones, in this climate, right, is definitely not reading the room. The phone kind of went for this old school nostalgic callback to the iPhone 5 and 5S because, we love that design, but honestly, that design suits more of the smaller devices like the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro, and especially the 12 mini. For this 12 Pro Max, this has probably made this the most uncomfortable phone I've pretty much used this year and in a long while because it's just too wide. The width of it, I don't know, man, the lack of curves, it just doesn't really feel like a new phone to me, right? That's just me personally. Yes, the display is slightly bigger, slightly higher resolution, but even then, it really just feels like more of the same.
Let's talk about one of the new colors for this year, and definitively the best color for the Pro phones this year, and that's Pacific Blue. This color is straight up mesmerizing, and I think it was the perfect transition from last year's Midnight Green. The stainless steel frame, although fingerprint prone like no other, looks really nice with that subtle blue tint. If you're debating which color to get for your iPhone 12 Pro, just get the blue. Don't overthink it.
yeah, Pacific blue.
The phone doesn't feel any less fragile with this design either though. I am consumed with immense fear whenever we take this thing outside to shoot, and that's just because it's glass on both sides. It's just a glass slab. But according to Apple, now with the 12 and 12 Pro, we should be getting 4 times better drop performance compared to the 11 and 11 Pro, and that's all due to nano-ceramic crystals that have been implemented into the 12 and 12 Pro's display, into what Apple's calling the ceramic shield. But look, Apple's not saying that the phone isn't going to crack if you drop it now. Glass is still glass at the end of the day, and you can throw in as many nano-ceramic crystals as you want, but glass isn't shatterproof, at least in its current form. I've already seen a bunch of 12 and 12 Pro snapped up online. It's been quite unfortunate to see. But this is a definitive review, of course, so it's only right that we do a drop test to really find out how durable the display is with this new ceramic shield on the iPhone 12 Pro. So without further ado, let's do this. Yeah, we're not actually gonna do that. You thought I was gonna do that? No, we're not.
Oh, dude. What the hell scratched my screen? Dude! What the hell scratched the screen, dude? Oh, something scratched my screen.
Did you see that? Did you see the pain and anguish in Kevin Nether's eyes? I don't know how it happens, but a lot of 12 and 12 Pro users have been experiencing this, where you have the phone for a few days, and out of nowhere you look at the phone and there's some sort of elongated scratch in there, and you don't know what to do except feel hurt. And I don't think the iPhone 12 or 12 Pro is objectively more scratch prone than any other flagship to come out this year. I think it's just the fact that Apple, with their presentation of the ceramic shield and the supposed improved durability, has kind of set us up to think that it shouldn't be this way. We shouldn't be seeing scratches on the second day of ownership. And I think that's just a usage thing. I carry around 2 phones often, so it's known that the camera lenses here on the iPhone 12 Pro are made of sapphire and hence can scratch other screens. So when carrying an 11 Pro and 12 Pro in your pocket, one camera is gonna scratch the other screen and vice versa. So I don't think the iPhone 12 Pro is objectively more scratch prone because of this ceramic shield, but it is really sad to see my $1,000 phone get scratched up on the second day of ownership. That just sucks. Now with this scratching issue, if you want to call it that, in combination with the fingerprint-prone stainless steel frame, I think a case is naturally going to make its way into the picture for a lot of people, including myself. And we'll get into case recommendations a bit later, but I think overall you got to kind of look at the iPhone 12 Pro's design this way. It's pretty, it's shiny, and I think each colorway for the 12 Pro really allows the phone to stand on its own and visually tell its own story, specifically the blue and then the gold here. But if you want it to stay that way, I think you're just gonna have to give up embracing the phone in its birthday suit. You know, there are even people in this video who prefer not to use cases or screen protectors at all, and I think that's cool, but just know that this phone looks very nice and feels nice and expensive in your hand, but that comes at the cost of fragility. Pixels upon pixels upon pixels. No, not those pixels. The pixels in here. The display on the Pro model iPhones have always been great, generally speaking, and while they're not that much better here in this generation, they are a bit bigger. The 12 Pro here receives a 0.3-inch screen bump over last year's 11 Pro, while the 12 Pro Max here, the bigger boy, gets a 0.2-inch screen bump over the 11 Pro Max to come before it. Some people are happy about this and some people aren't, and my take on it is that there is no universal best screen size. I think you just gotta pick what works best for your middies. But some of you may be wondering how that affects the general usability compared to the 11 Pros from last year. And I gotta say, regardless of how that flat edge design feels in the hand to you, because clearly some people like it and some people don't, you are gonna notice that difference in screen size, especially with the 12 Pro Max here. This phone is freaking huge, but I honestly love it, and I love the display on the smaller 12 Pro as well, and not just because of the size, but the quality. The 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max use super bright and beautiful Super Retina XDR displays. That's Apple's fancy marketing term for it. But the key terms to remember here are OLED and HDR. OLED describes the display type that the iPhones are using. As opposed to standard LCDs, OLED displays use pixels that produce their own source of light, meaning you're gonna get fantastic contrast. Blacks are gonna be as deep as they can be, because when you're looking at black on the iPhone screen, you're just looking at pixels that are turned off. HDR is something we'll get a bit more into later, but because the iPhones have HDR capable displays, they're gonna be extremely bright, and Apple's display calibration is always on point, so the colors are great here on the 12 Pro's displays. And generally speaking, these are great screens, but you might already know where this is heading. Apple makes a product called the iPad Pro, and one of the great things about the iPad Pro is the display, and specifically the refresh rate. The iPad Pro has an 120 Hz refresh rate, meaning that compared to the iPhone here, whose display refreshes 60 times in a second, the iPad Pro's display refreshes 120 times in a second. So the screen looks almost unnaturally smooth when scrolling through content, or generally speaking, interacting with the UI. The iPhones, the MacBooks, even their $5,000 Pro Display XDR doesn't feature this technology, and the Pro Display XDR doesn't have it for different reasons. But point being, while this is a unique feature within Apple's product lineup, pretty much every other major flagship smartphone has had a ProMotion display for at least a year now. Google with their Pixel 5, I just reviewed that. Samsung with their S phones and their Note 20 phones. All the OnePlus devices that I've reviewed in the past year have had high refresh rate displays. So what gives? Why does my $1,000+ iPhone 12 Pro not feature this technology? So you have phones like the Notes, the Folds. What do you feel about Apple releasing the 60 Hertz, kind of run-of-the-mill display in 2020?
I guess like one of the general answers, especially among the tech heads, is that, oh well, the animations are really smooth, so it kind of makes up for it. But I just think it's way overdue for a high refresh rate, at least 90 hertz. It's just such a missed opportunity to me, and it may not be a deal breaker to me, but it's just like, oh come on.
I think that would have been what I wanted in this phone more than pretty much anything else, just because I feel like that's what makes the phone. I feel like 120 hertz is more noticeable as far as speed and fluidity than any sort of CPU bump or throwing in 10 extra gigs of RAM or something like that.
Exactly.
I definitely noticed the difference in screen refresh. However, there's a few things that the iPhones have going for them. And one is the touch responsiveness is 240, and some Samsung phones and Android phones have 242, but like that makes such a difference. It's such a subtle thing, but the responsiveness is really good. And the other thing that iPhones are still really good at is maintaining frame rates of 60. Whereas if you go to a lesser Android phone, even like a Pixel 4a, or like even some of the older OnePlus phones, it's not 60 consistently. If you really look, there are dropped frames, whereas iOS is so good at maintaining that 60. So even though it's not high refresh, it's just the fluidity kind of tricks your brain into thinking like it's just it's like a video playing continuously, you know what I mean?
I think you're definitely right about the iPhone's general consistency. I feel like I never feel like the phone slows down, whereas, every now and then on an Android phone, it does, whether, I could be doing whatever, but Yeah, I think the iPhones are just really consistent with that speed. There are likely many factors involved as far as a lack of 120Hz on these smartphones. A high refresh rate display is going to be a hit on the battery, and the 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max already have smaller batteries than the 11 Pros from last year. There's also the fact that the new 5G modems on this phone are going to sip more battery life as well. This year's also been pretty garbaggio for manufacturers and supply chains, so maybe Apple just couldn't get enough of the specific display type they needed, or maybe they just chose to hold out. Regardless, I think this is for sure the last time I'm going to tolerate a 60Hz refresh rate on smartphones this expensive. And I think Apple got away with it this year because in general, the average consumer level display isn't going to have a refresh rate higher than 60Hz. So I feel like the average Joe doesn't really know what he's missing. But it seems though, based on leaks, 120Hz was kind of close to making it into these smartphones, but it'll probably be on the iPhone 13 next year. Rumors for that are already starting and I'm already tired. Let's talk audio real quick though. I was talking about earlier in the video how the earpiece speaker here is one half of an A1 sound experience that you're getting here on the 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max, and I was not joking. The audio on both these phones is fire. It doesn't seem like the Pro Max is any better than the standard 12 Pro. They sound just about the same, they get just as loud, but they both sound really, really good. And this is a good thing because mobile audio is becoming more and more important by the day. Yeah, that's it. Audio sounds really good. The battery performance here in the 12 Pros is not exactly what I was expecting coming from the 11 Pros from last year. If I were to throw out a percentage, I'd say these are about 10 to 15% worse than the 11 Pros. I can get about 6 to 6.5 hours of screen on time for the 12 Pro and 6.5 to 7 hours of screen on time for the 12 Pro Max. Apple's had to make room for more components in these phones, and that results in us getting physically smaller batteries this time around. And what's Apple's solution to this? Well, it's funny because I've had both these phones for nearly a month now and I still don't know, but I guess Apple thought it was this. MagSafe is what Apple originally used to charge the pre-Thunderbolt 3 MacBooks, and it was called MagSafe because it was a charger that made it safe to have your charging cable dangling off the kitchen counter or running across the bedroom floor, because if the cable got snagged or tripped on, your laptop would stay safe. But is that the case here?
That's a great question because the word MagSafe originally came from when they were just a magnetic charger in the MacBook Pro, and you could kick it right out of the side, trip over the cable and accidentally hit it, and would just fall right out, and your MacBook, your laptop would be safe. That's not what's happening with this new magnetic iPhone charger. It doesn't feel as safe. Like if I kick this off my nightstand with the MagSafe, it's gonna fall. So it doesn't feel as safe as the original MagSafe, but I still think it's kind of neat.
When I first saw MagSafe, I was like, oh, this looks vaguely interesting. But as I've used it more, I've really grown to like it. I think that the charging, if that was the only feature, would have been cool because it's perfectly aligned. And it is very, like every night, it sounds weird, but it's kind of like satisfying and fun to put your phone on the charger and just know it's gonna be perfectly aligned, because the issue that that's solving is missing charge for 12 hours while you're sleeping, like the little bear you are, because I have had a few nights where I was completely sober, that I just, missed my phone by a half centimeter and I woke up with no charge. So it's great to have that perfect aligned charging.
For me personally, how safe it is, I don't think it's any safer than not using normal wireless charging, in my personal opinion, and it's just not something I'm going to use. And the fact that you buy the MagSafe charger, you got to use the right power plug, you got to buy the power plug, and then the speed fluctuates because of so many different situations. You get my tone, you get what I'm getting with this, man. MagSafe, it's not really something I see as that important right now or safe.
So I haven't been able to get my hands on one, but I haven't really been trying too hard to get one. I'm sure if I really tried to, I could get my hands on one. It's sold out everywhere I look. But again, kind of like 5G, the possibilities are there. But as of right, it's really just up to Apple and other manufacturers, accessory makers and whatnot, to really take advantage of it. I like the idea of it. I think it's cool, it's convenient, but for somebody that hasn't tried it out yet, looking from the outside in, it's neat. It's definitely a neat thing. But how Apple talked about it, it's really going to be up to everybody that makes accessories for it to really take advantage of what it can do.
The coolest part, though, is the ecosystem that it's enabled. You have like a car mount accessory. So if you have any car pretty much, then you just slap your phone up there and it's magnetic. You have the wallet that I didn't really like. The views of the wallet video that gets are crazy. I guess I missed out on that wave. The wallet never looked that appealing. I've not ever been a fan of sticking something on the back of my phone, but the cases are also cool. It lights up differently. There's different functionality. I think that Apple is on something big here.
I think MagSafe as a concept is cool, but Apple totally dropped the ball on execution. Half the people in this video, who review tech for a living by the way, didn't even bother getting a MagSafe charger accessory, and that's because it's just not there yet. The charger is only marginally faster than traditional wireless charging, and using the charger itself is really only convenient for when you're sitting at a desk or something like that. I think the length is a big issue with this charger as well. They could have made it a bit longer. This is not going to be any good for traveling. Not that I'm going anywhere. Where MagSafe's really gonna have to come through is with the accessories. As seen with these Apple MagSafe cases, it's known that this connection is not only designed for transferring power, but transferring data as well. And once you're talking about fleshing out and combining them both, we could potentially see MagSafe accessories in the future that make the iPhone modular, so to speak. But I'm probably getting ahead of myself. I'd say for now, Apple should just focus on giving us more than a corded hockey puck. 5G, according to Apple, just got real with the release of the iPhone 12 and 12 Pros. And I don't think verbally expressing how I feel about that claim is necessary, but I will talk about my experience with 5G and how the performance has been for both the Pro models. I've done a bunch of speed tests and have gotten anywhere from 150 to 300 megabits per second download and 60 to 100 megabits per second upload speeds, which is pretty mid. But Apple talked a heck of a lot about millimeter wave 5G and the awesome speeds you can achieve with that. They talked about peak download speeds of 4 gigabits per second and peak upload speeds of 200 megabits per second in ideal conditions. So I figured I would let the other guys talk to you about 5G while I go and try to achieve those speeds somewhere in the city. Wish me luck. In the process of making this video, I teamed up with Incipio to feature some cases for you that are great options for keeping your iPhone 12 Pro safe and secure. So thanks to Incipio for sponsoring this video and supporting this project. When it comes to case design, I like to keep things pretty minimal, and Incipio sent me a bunch of cases to try, but the one I keep coming back to is this new Duo case for the 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max. I think it's one of the best combinations of a minimal design and maximum protection. The way the Duo case achieves this is in the name. The Duo case features a dual layer design, and typically, this is not something I like on smartphone cases because other manufacturers typically make it so hard to take these cases off in the name of protection. But with the Duo case, taking both layers off simultaneously or one layer individually, it's super easy. I don't feel like I gotta fight the phone to get the case off, and I've been doing a bunch of running around trying to get shots for this video, so I've been constantly taking the phone in and out of the case to get shots, and the Duo case made that very easy for me. Because of the included impact strut technology that runs along the sidewall of the cases, the Duo can disperse the shock and impact force of any drop away from your phone. The case has been tested to survive drops up to 12 feet, so a fall from your pocket or your desk should bring no fear to your face. There's also a raised edge bevel to protect the display from unexpected drops to the floor and especially uneven surfaces. And speaking of surfaces, think of how many different surfaces you touch in a day and how many times you touch your smartphone in a day. You don't want all of those germs getting on the device you use every every single day. And that's why the Duo case has an antimicrobial coating that prevents and eliminates 99% of surface bacteria and germs. Especially right now, keeping your device clean and germ-free as much as you can is very important. With this new 5G antenna on the iPhone 12, some may be wondering how cases are going to impact performance with 5G. And thankfully, that's not a worry you need to have here with Incipio cases, as the Duo case is fully 5G compatible and ready. The Duo case comes in a variety of colors for all the iPhone 12 models, and if you're interested in checking out the Duo or any of Incipio's cases, be sure to check the first link in the description down below. And thanks again to Incipio for supporting the channel and sponsoring this video.
Where I am, I get really good 5G coverage actually, and we don't use the sophisticated super fast millimeter wave. It's just the normal sub-6, and I get good coverage. And look, 5G is important to me personally because I actually use my phone connection as my main internet because it's actually way faster than my home broadband. And for the longest time, I've been streaming and using high-speed 4G LTE. So having 5G, it's really important. I don't know how much it's important right now because it's just so new. It's only about a year old in the UK. So personally, I think it's important for the future, but right now, it shouldn't be the main priority for you to be getting this phone.
I feel like the tech pop on YouTube has gotten a very mixed bag. I have seen just as many YouTubers lose their GD minds over 5G, going to the 1 mm wave, ultra fast bandwidth area in their area. As many people like me say 5G is not a big deal. I think The Verge has done an excellent job talking about 5G not being a big deal. I feel like 5G is not ready. I know for a fact it's not ready. And my Verizon speeds on 5G, as I demoed in my own video, have been slower pretty consistently on 5G. 5G is a really big idea. It's just not there yet. I think in a few years, 5G is gonna be incredible and you're gonna be getting, 300 down, 300 up easy on low bandwidth 5G.
Things like the negative impact to battery life is something to consider, even though it's been managed really well on here, I have to say. It's a mixed one. I think in a year's time going forward, it is getting the jump on it early kind of helps it because most people do keep their iPhones if they look after it really well for at least 3 to 4 years. So
but the network's not built out right now, and I think that if you're buying this iPhone because of 5G, that should really be a non-factor for you. Just because in your case, your area, it might be a mild to moderate upgrade. I think for most people, at least those of you in the US, you are not gonna notice any speed difference when you upgrade to 5G.
And it's so limited to the point as far as I'm concerned, I honestly haven't experienced anything that would make me super excited for 5G. Oh, I can't wait for 5G. Now I've seen, other people test it out and, they're like, oh, this is so cool. And I know that there are the possibilities are definitely there, but in terms of just personal experience, I haven't really been through something that would make me go, oh yeah, I'm so ready for 5G. In addition to me being like, oh yeah, I'm so glad that this phone that I have has 5G capabilities, or this next phone that I'm gonna get has 5G capabilities. It's good for future proofing, but as far as like right now, ugh.
Miles, what do you think about that? You're asking us these questions. What do you think about that?
Can I get a number 6 meal? And
a number 6 meal?
Yeah. So I spent the day going to 5 locations in Chicago where Verizon's coverage map said I should be getting millimeter wave 5G. And I was far from being in ideal conditions. It was 40 degrees out, a little cold, and it was foggy, so it made it harder for me to visually identify a millimeter wave tower. But as you saw, I didn't even get close to those peak upload or download speeds, and that should tell you where 5G's at. I went out of my way to do these speed tests and got speeds faster than LTE sometimes, but most of the time 5G was slower than normal LTE. And so 5G did not just become real, it just became a priority, but we still got a long way to go.
It is the future, and the future is important. And because every iPhone shipping that's new now is going to have 5G capability built in, that future looks more promising than ever. That speed that you can get, that low latency you can get, that next generation of connection. But I'll say the other end of it, which I always say, which is it's still being built.
For a lot of people, this is the it factor for the iPhone. The way in which you're able to tell stories, film the occasional 3 a.m. street brawl, and capture those moments that are forever subjugated to the hidden folder. I'm talking about the cameras, and while not a whole lot has changed over the course of a year, this is as good as it gets for iPhone photography and video. The iPhone's triple camera system really is a triple threat amongst most other flagship cameras, and while it's not the best at every single thing that it does, I'm telling you, if you want the best mobile photography and videography experience in a smartphone, you'll want this in your pocket. No joke. Compared to last year's Pro phones, there isn't that huge of a jump as far as image quality, and in a few scenarios, my 11 Pro actually took better photos than my 12 Pro did. But general image quality is as always really good. It seems as though Apple may be trying to be a bit more contrasty with their image processing, and I'm all for it. That in combination with the amazing dynamic range adds up to make a killer photography experience here overall. One of the biggest benefits for photography on the 12 Pros is the improved low light performance. You've now got the ability to shoot in night mode on all 3 cameras, which is awesome because previously you couldn't shoot in night mode on the ultra-wide camera, which really sucked. And now, because of the included LiDAR scanner on the 12 Pro, you're getting improved performance in low light for portrait mode as well. All of these changes in one way or another are beneficial for this system, but probably one of the coolest new features is the ability and the exclusive ability on the 12 Pros to shoot in Apple Pro RAW. Compared to standard JPEGs that come out of the camera app, Apple's Pro RAW format is going to give you an immense amount of flexibility in post, whether that be for fixing the exposure or being able to completely transform the image creatively. Apple's Pro RAW format isn't a huge deal because of RAW itself, because through third-party apps you've been able to take RAW photos for a while now. But now because of Apple Pro RAW, the RAW format has the ability to transcend into the mainstream in a way that makes more casual photo takers familiar with RAW and why it's beneficial, just because it's built in. But other than all that, the photography experience is very much like the 11 Pros overall. The 12 Pro Max here actually has a larger sensor than the 12 Pro, sensor shift image stabilization, and a slightly higher focal length telephoto lens. And while all of these things help, this isn't necessarily a different phone as far as the camera experience goes, and I wouldn't spend the extra $100 over the Pro just to get the camera features. But if you already wanted the Max, it's a nice bonus. We need to talk about the video on the iPhone 12 Pros because Apple added a really underrated feature to the 12 lineup this year, and that's the 10-bit Dolby Vision HDR video recording. I shot and uploaded this entire video in HDR just so you can see the difference compared to previous videos. Because of that enhanced contrast ratio you get with HDR, everything just looks so much more true to life, and colors really pop as well. There are not many prosumer cameras that can shoot HDR video well, so the fact that we've got it here in a smartphone is pretty freaking exciting. However, just like many other aspects of this phone, HDR support hasn't fully been built out yet on many video sharing platforms, and so it'll be a while before HDR is a necessity or even a standard. But I'll tell you what, after shooting HDR, I don't think I'm going back. The great thing about being able to shoot in HDR on the iPhone 12s is the fact that you can natively view the footage on your iPhone afterwards. Like I said, the displays are HDR compatible, and so you can experience exactly what you're supposed to get from shooting in HDR right on your smartphone. I think this is easily the best feature about the 12 Pro as a videographer, more than any other feature on this phone. And here I am talking about the super pretty footage you should be getting from shooting an HDR video, but I don't have that much pretty footage to share, and that's because the weather here in Chicago hasn't been all that exciting to look at, let alone feel, and so I thought it would be cool to outsource to someone else to get some pretty HDR iPhone 12 Pro scenes. This is my friend Tyga. We came up together on this whole YouTube thing and have been friends ever since, and I thought it would be cool for him to share his camera experience on the iPhone 12 Pro, especially because he's coming from the iPhone XR, which is a huge jump.
So I'm a guy that came from the XR, and now upgrading to the 12 Pro, that 2-year span is actually an immense upgrade. If you remember, the XR only had one main lens, and now immediately jumping ship to a triple lens camera module, it became a legit tool as a filmmaker and a photographer. I remember the times, and it wasn't even too long ago when, like, it was probably like a few years ago when everybody was raving about that Sony RX100 series, and it was the best point and shoot vlogging camera out there. Everybody was using it, but now, no, this is the best camera that fits in your pocket, hands down, and it's a camera that you carry all the time. With the iPhone 12 Pro, I found myself using the main lens and the telephoto lens the most. I use the ultra wide lens too, and it's great for getting everything into context, and that ultra wide field of view is really immense, and you know, that's a one of a kind look. But for creative expression and for my own personal work, I found myself fiddling around with the telephoto lens a lot more than I expected. And I know that Apple ProRAW is coming out soon too. It's available now for iOS 14.3 beta, but I unfortunately don't have beta. I'm just a regular Apple user. So when it does come out for everybody, Apple ProRAW is gonna be a feature that I will simply not turn off. Apple ProRAW is a feature that I'm most excited about, even more than, you know, 10-bit HDR video recording. I'm just really curious on how Apple is going to implement artificial intelligence and deep fusion with raw flexibility. I'm just expecting even more amazing photos out of these cameras, and I'm not capping. This is my favorite photography device today. You know, I shoot a lot of film, so I have my Olympus AF1 point and shoot film camera. I have the Mamiya RB67. I use my Sony A7 III II, but I use the iPhone the most. And even my latest Instagram post is now used with this iPhone. And when the camera you carry around with all the time keeps getting better and better, it really transforms the ideology of the iPhone. It's simply not a phone anymore or a distraction device. You can legit take incredible photos and videos out of this camera that matches professional work. And it's kind of cliche and overused, the phrase, you know, to start with whatever camera you have, but I have to emphasize this again. If you have this camera system in your pocket, you absolutely have no excuses now. A device that shoots 10-bit HDR video recording and can chop it up on its own is a device that I've never heard of. And as these phones keep getting better and better, the barrier of entry keeps getting shorter and shorter as well. So I didn't get too technical with the specs or anything like that. You know, I'm sure you guys have heard all about it by now. So I just wanted to talk about my personal experience and what I'm most excited about, especially from a user that's coming from a XR.
So it's no doubt that the iPhone 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max have a great photography and videography experience, and anyone coming from anything older than something like the iPhone 10 should be thoroughly impressed with the experience overall. One issue I experienced the most with these phones was this weird light rate issue I would experience when shooting against lights, and it was particularly noticeable at low light. But other than that, Apple did a bang-up job with the 12 Pro's cameras, and I really wonder where they're gonna go from here, because they've already got such a huge lead over the competition. Apple's decided to exclude the charging brick from all of the iPhone 12 models this year, and their explanation is that they want to contribute to the fight against e-waste in the US, which, by the way, is a real issue. E-waste only represents about 2% of trash in American landfills, but represents about 70% of toxic waste, which is bad. And I think Apple's going to make a huge impact by doing this in the long term. But the argument that people have made is that these phones cost $1,000+ and that it shouldn't be questioned whether your $1,000+ smartphone comes with a charging brick inside the box. And I think that is a valid point, but a thing to consider here is that so many people buying this phone are already going to have some sort of a complete charging method already on hand. And many people buying this phone would simply be adding to a collection of charging bricks they don't need. Or it'll just end up in a landfill somewhere.
I am not a fan of the charger being removed. I find that very ironic, hypocritical in a lot of ways, considering that Apple still ships a charger with every iPad, every MacBook. It's like, where's the difference here? Yes, you probably ship a ton of iPhones, but I mean, $20 is still kind of a high price for a charger. I think it should have just been like, hey, you can request a free charger if you want one. I think that would have been most fair. Yeah, it would have cut into their margins a little bit, but then you don't have to spend $729 minimum on a phone and another $20.
For the people buying this phone who don't have a USB-C power adapter or some other complete charging method on hand, it really does sting. I feel for you on that one. But they're all alternatives to Apple's 20-watt USB-C power adapter that offer more functionality for less money, and I'll link some below.
I've made several videos on the not including the charger in the box and my thoughts on it. You know what? I do like the slimmer box and the slimmer packaging, 100%. I actually like it, funny enough, and the long-term goal of helping the environment with reducing carbon footprint and carbon emissions, yeah, I back that 100%. But do that on the non-pro model devices. At this stage, don't do that on your pro model devices that are over $1,000, £1,000. Include the necessary charging brick to give you the best charging speeds. Avoid anyone using the wrong chargers when it comes in there. So I don't know, that's just something I just don't agree with at this stage, but long term I guess it makes sense. But for the pro models, nah, not right now, man. It's not really cutting it.
This is something that people are never going to agree on, and that's okay. But I think Apple making this move is only going to force other manufacturers to follow suit. And because Apple did this, eventually we could see a drastic reduction in e-waste globally, which is a huge win for everybody.
It does actually help the environment, but I think the more complete version of that thought is it just happens to help the environment. It would be a little disingenuous to think that's the only reason Apple's getting rid of accessories in the box. The easy way to justify it is the obvious benefit to the environment of shipping less things, shipping smaller things, shipping higher volume more efficiently. But that's not the only reason they're doing it. It just happens to be a great excuse.
And that's probably the most positive outlook to have on this situation, because otherwise we're just talking about $1,000+ smartphones that don't come with a charger, and that'll only make as much sense as you let it.
I guess we will pay the price to help the environment with e-waste, which is an argument that is valid. It's just like, could we have done this another way? Did we need to remove the charger? Maybe we could have put it in a different type of packaging, or really just kind of went to a football stadium and started just slinging iPhones out at people. It's like just a feeding frenzy. Maybe that's how we save the environment as well. I really like this phone. I like the LiDAR sensor. I enjoy having 3 camera lenses. It is a little bit heavier than the 12. I wish the weight was slightly improved. It was, a little bit lighter for being the exact same dimensions as the standard iPhone 12. But I feel like I get a good value out of this phone. I am a pretty heavy phone user, so I do make videos about this stuff, so I can sort of build in this $1,000 entry-level cost. But even if I didn't do this for a living, I feel like I would be genuinely happy as a tech enthusiast with the iPhone 12 Pro.
Honestly, no. Like I said before on record, If your iPhone XS Max is in good condition and is working, skip this phone. If you were coming from an iPhone 10 generation or an iPhone 8 Plus generation from that time, the iPhone 10 did not have a Max large version. Yeah, I guess it's worth upgrading because there's a 3-year gap, right? Getting on to 4 years, depending on when you do your upgrade and when you got the phone.
The fact that despite, all these other devices around you, you're sticking with iPhone, I think that's a pretty big deal, quite honestly.
Something that comes to my head when I think about this, with there being quote unquote no competition, is NBA 2K. This is kind of an interesting comparison, but NBA 2K, it's the only real simulation basketball video game out there, and there really isn't any other competition. It used to be NBA Live, but who knows what happened to them? EA and EA Sports, I don't know. But they can do whatever they want, and they know that people are going to buy that video game every single year without fail. They know they're going to make their money on that, so they can do whatever they want. And so Apple's kind of the same way. They can do whatever they want, and it's not like they're doing bad things, but they can do whatever they want, and they know that people are just going to continue to buy. They're going to buy it, whatever they do or whatever they don't do. So it's unfortunate, but that's part of that ecosystem.
I really like the design this time. I've been sort of asking for this for a while, so it would be crazy of me to say, I don't like it anymore. I love this design.
Come on, man. As an Apple user, you're seeing all the love that they're putting on the iPads when it comes to things like USB-C, Touch ID, ProMotion, so many things. It just feels like this is just left behind. And I don't know, man, when it comes to the camera experience is really good. I really love the consistency of all 3 lenses when it comes to the colors. They're really pushing the boundaries and making sure that they pretty much have the overall best video experience on a smartphone.
I've been using this since it came out on October 23rd. And I'm recording this video and I still get just as excited about it. And I don't know what it is. It's just, I think the culmination of a lot of rumors and a lot of wants from people that care about phones. And Apple did it.
All the things that really draw people into having an iPhone, iOS, the ecosystem, unless you really want a large screen iPhone, trust me, save yourself the money. You get the same experience on the other iPhones.
This has been my favorite iPhone to use ever, as it should be. It's the newest one. But yeah, I'd buy it again. I like it.
These devices to many are just rehoused iPhone 11s as far as their worthiness. And to others, these smartphones represent the pinnacle of smartphone technology. And there are aspects of these devices that are going to be both loved and hated by anyone and everyone. But that goes without saying. I think the bottom line here is that whether you like it or not, Apple has innovated with these products, whether that be with the Ceramic Shield or the Dolby Vision HDR video recording. But even more so than that, I think Apple's further laid the groundwork for the users to innovate with this tool. And if Apple does what Apple does best, come iPhone 15, a lot of the things I'm talking about here on the 12 Pro won't be features, they'll be essentials. Getting to understand the fundamentals of what makes these smartphones more important than last time has been a cool experience, and in doing so, I think I've realized that these devices not only represent an upgrade over iPhones of the past, but they represent a promise of the future. A future I'm very much looking forward to. If you made it to the end of this video, I sincerely thank you for making it all the way through. In addition to Incipio supporting this video, Lens Rentals, an awesome camera gear rental site, hooked me up with a Canon C200 and a bunch of other filmmaking tools that were a critical part in making this video possible in the way I did so. Although they hooked me up with the gear, they did not pay me a dime, and I'm a frequent customer of their site regardless. And so if you're interested in checking out the very best and easiest gear rental site, click the link in the description below to check them out. Thanks to SJ and the Lens Rentals teams for letting me borrow that gear. I want to thank everyone that was a part of this project as well. That includes Tyga, Sam, Marquez, Ben, Zachary Anderson, my old boss Brandon Miniman, and Lewis for helping me film. I have an immense amount of respect for these guys as creators, and I'm super grateful that they were part of this project in the way that they were. If you're interested in checking out any of their stuff, it'll all be linked in the description below. Again, thank you guys for being a part of this project. And I definitely want to thank you guys. I was only able to make this video because of every like, every comment, every share, every view I got on a video here and over at 9 to 5 Mac. I am blown away with feedback every time I upload on this channel. I see it all and I really appreciate it. I obviously don't upload on this channel very much, but I always try to make sure I've got something great when I do. And so if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe for future content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Probably 2021 realistically as far as this channel goes, but if you really want to keep up, you know where to find me. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. And by the way, SDR is dead to me.